Well, welcome everyone to our hangout for the cmaltcmooc. We've got Todd here from Auckland, physiotherapy, and we've got Paul and Shingai from Nelson Marlborough Institute of Technology, and lovely sunny weather down here. So welcome, and just going to have a bit of a discussion around where people are at, and we were kind of hoping that a couple of our members might join us today who have just found out that they've received their CMALT accreditation. So congratulations to David Parsons on the Mind Lab, and also to Liz Hudson all the way from Telford and Coventry University, who've both received their CMALT accreditation today, which is fantastic. So this week we've sort of been looking at areas of specialisation. And we had a bit of a brainstorm with Paul and Shingai a couple of days ago, and they produced a little video each outlining what the areas of specialisation is. I was just wondering, Paul and Shingai, have you thought any further about what you would actually put into your specialisation section, or how you would approach that in your portfolios?
I haven't thought about it much yet, but I've been doing some work with the departments. So I joined the cmaltcmooc, keeping evidence. So from now on, I'll start compiling my evidence and at least put it in my portfolio to show what I'm doing with the departments.
Yeah, I think that's part of the key, is just getting into the habit of really documenting what you're doing, so there is evidence there.
That's my weak spot, documenting what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So what about you, Paul? How are you going to approach your specialisation?
I thought I'd start by, last year I gave a presentation at Moodle Moot on Moodle kind of interface design and some ideas as to how to simplify the interface and some examples of what we've done here. So I was thinking about, that presentation I have already done, and I was thinking I could slice that up and use some of the images and graphics and just kind of explain our thought processes as I guess kind of evidence of my specialisation, which is interface design.
Yeah, did anyone video your presentation?
Don't think so. No.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I find is it's really good exercise to do is whenever you're doing a presentation, particularly if it's a conference presentation, is to get someone to even just use their camera phone to record it, so there's a record of the event. And you can just load that up to YouTube, or even just little snippets of it, and use that as evidence and reflect upon it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So I was thinking we should do that definitely, Todd, at the Escalite conference for the sessions that you're involved in, which is going to be a couple of them at least.
Yeah, so that does sound like a good idea. So are you saying that would be better than having the actual PowerPoint itself? I'm just trying to work out what's the advantage, because having the PowerPoint, or however you are doing the presentation, would be relatively easy to submit as evidence, but you're suggesting that a video could be a better form of evidence?
Yeah, well, I think it's just more authentic. It also shows you actually doing what you were saying, and you can get an idea of the audience interaction, of your ability to convey and present, and get other people on board. With a PowerPoint presentation, you've got no idea about those aspects. And you've also got no idea if it was actually delivered unless it's in proceedings.
And I guess it helps with the likes of that collaboration and communication area.
Yeah. And I think it also helps for the potential to be invited to be a speaker somewhere. People really like to have either heard you or seen you, whether that's live or via a video. So having those examples of you in practice, I think it can be really useful.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome, Liz. Good to see you there.
Hello. Sorry, I'm having some connection issues this end.
That's
Can
okay.
you hear me?
Yeah, you're just sort of dropping a little bit. But we want to say congratulations on getting your CMALT.
Hey,
Thank you very much.
well done.
So great to have you on
Thank you.
board.
Brilliant.
So we were just sort of brainstorming a bit around areas of specialisation, and from your experience, how did you approach your area of specialisation in your portfolio?
I think it's an interesting section that I did leave kind of till the end to decide mark my specialist areas to be, because you can have more than one, and I suppose many people don't really think about that. You have a job title but not necessarily a specialism. And I was an instructional designer before, and now I'm a learning technologist. So learning design plays a big part in my role, and that's kind of developed more. So I went with learning experience design as I developed that kind of area, and included research and work around user experience, and some more research into kind of pedagogies. So yeah, that was my first one. And then as a sub-specialism, I looked at kind of Adobe Spark and kind of interactive authoring, like rapid authoring tools, as my second specialist area.
Cool. Did you have a look at Adobe Spark at all?
And as part of putting the portfolio together, I've only really looked into that in the last sort of 6 months or so. It's not something that I've used that much to develop content, but it is actually something that I've been exploring as a potential tool for some of the academic staff that I work with, and some as a possibility for some students that are looking to do presentations. Usually they're tasked with doing a presentation, often in their third year, standing in front of a classroom with a PowerPoint, etc. And some of the classes are now looking at doing online presentations, or recording them and using different media to do that. So Adobe Spark has been one of the ones that we've been exploring together to do that.
Yeah, I know it's one that Ian particularly has been very interested in using and exploring.
Yeah. It's really, I like how it's got a really nice, clean user interface, and it does seem to have a lot of potential in that area. Yeah, but it's still quite a new tool to me. As you know, we haven't explored many of these particular apps. But I think it's got a lot of potential because it's one of the more user-friendly of the Adobe tools that you can use for that sort of thing.
Tom and Liz, can I just ask, is it something that you have to pay for?
Adobe Spark?
Yeah.
You can have like a free account, but I believe there are kind of premium options for it. As I say, it's something that we're only just looking into at the moment. We're looking at a range of different tools, but it's mainly for students. Some lecturers have come to me recently and to ask about kind of different tools that some of their students might want to use to present online, and different kinds of materials. And one of the ways that I've suggested that they go about that, rather than me recommend, oh, this tool is brilliant or this tool isn't, is actually to encourage the students to go out there for themselves and do some research for themselves, see if they can find a selection of tools that are available, and as groups, see if they can compare them, maybe if there are some free demos, or if they're free anyway, to have a dabble themselves, to come back and discuss them in class. So I think that when it comes to using different tools within the classroom, I like to encourage that kind of learner-driven approach, so that they understand the process. It's a bit like in section 1 of the CMALT portfolio, actually, in terms of encouraging their and developing their digital literacy and their resilience, professional resilience. They're going to have to go out there eventually in the professional world, and they might have to overcome a challenge, which might mean looking at a bunch of new tools and determining which one's going to be the best one and teaching themselves how to use it. So that's the approach that I'm trying to encourage with some of our, particularly the more senior students.
Can I ask you a question, Liz? If you
Sure.
come across tutors and lecturers of these technologies, and so they stand in the way of their students using them?
Would do the stuff, or I mean, we do have kind of there are different levels of expertise among staff. There are different technology, and they're not necessarily based on staff being against it. One of the things that is particularly prevalent, I mean, throughout education generally, but particularly prevalent in education, is that, you know, lecturers, many of them are doctors, professors, they are experts in their field. And when you become a lecturer, you really are sort of standing in front of the class traditionally, as an expert, and delivering your expertise. And the introduction of technology kind of disrupts that that hierarchy, that sense of there's sort of, it's like a power relationship, if, in a way, but I think that destabilizes their sense of kind of that authoritative identity that lecturers feel secure in. So actually they can stand there and impart their knowledge on a particular subject at ease, but then when technology fails, they can find themselves feeling at the opposite end of the spectrum, if you like. So it's about overcoming that. And one of the things that I'm looking at with our academic staff is discussions around professional resilience, so that they can, rather than technology be something that's imposed upon them or that they just have to deal with, that they actually start to digest what's going on, how digital technology is changing their identity as individuals, as lecturers, as teachers, as experts, and how that changes the dynamic them and their student. So I don't have an answer in terms of how's the right way to go about it, because they're also individual, but I do think that it's really important to start those conversations, because they're all going to come around the table, and some will be literally technophobes. They'll be like, I am scared of technology, and they'll have their reasons for being that way. And then other people will be like, well, it's not the technology, I don't know what it is, but they might genuinely feel that there's a threat to the way things that have been done before, that they're not ready to explore. So there's all sorts of things that can be going on around that, and I think just opening up discussion is a really good starting point.
What was the
So I thought I'd just throw that over to Todd, actually, because Todd is our, well, in this current discussion, our only actual lecturer. And just wondering, Todd, from your perspective, what differences have you seen in your teaching practice, you know, through the use of technology?
I think that, you know, what you're saying there, Liz, in terms of technology disrupts the hierarchy. I think that's hit the nail on the head for me as far as distinguishing between, shall we say, some older school style of teaching, and within even our department we have got people that have been here for 40 years compared to those that have been here for 5. So I think that there is a difference of, you know, where you choose to unsettle or disrupt, where people are able to consider these things, and it's a little bit of you know, those corridor conversations of just being confident and saying, you know, I'm trying things a little bit differently. I've found this software that I'm going to try delivering this particular. So as a physio, we do things as far as case scenarios, so almost problem-based learning, and hopefully moving into more the blended learning. And being able to show other people as to what you've been doing, and then help them with the first time that they give it a go. I do find it difficult to stand back. I know that's something that I need to be aware of, but at the same time, it's also trying to make that approach to be as successful as you can. I am finding students are more and more critical of what you do. They will be the first ones to make notice when you aren't able to get onto the network because the network's down for the university. They'll, you know, they're straight onto their Facebooks and Twitter to be able to communicate with one another. And so I think being able to be well practiced in it is also something as a lecturer that I need to be wary of. So when I am trying something new, to be able to book out the lecture theatre or the lab and actually go at that first point that I'm going to try it out, make sure it works for that room, certainly has helped me.
Yeah, and I think just being able to troubleshoot, I think students appreciate the ability to not get flustered when something goes wrong, because there's always going to be something that goes wrong, but it's your approach to troubleshooting that and having a backup plan and being able to get on with it anyway.
Certainly,
hey, Paul,
helps.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, you wanted to say something before.
Oh, I was just interested in the term that Liz used before. Was it a 2-word term, and the second word was resilience?
Professional resilience. Yeah.
Professional resilience. Okay.
Yeah,
It's really I mean, there are on like discourses around that area. I didn't invent the term, definitely not, but it's something I've picked up on as quite relevant to this particular issue. So yeah, I think that those issues where technology does go wrong, and actually that is a more immediate issue around resilience. It's like, how do you cope in class? And actually, one of the things that I think that is quite a new thing to many teaching staff is actually exposing your vulnerabilities when it comes to technology, because those students aren't as digitally savvy as they might let on. They might know how to use social media and certain things. They might have lots of other expertise. They're not experts per se when it comes to technology. We all know how to do different things with technology. And when students see how their lecturers respond to digital problems, so immediate ones like, okay, the Wi-Fi's gone down or whatever it might be, or larger, wider ones like to communicate something to some students who are in another country, how are we going to go about that? The way we go about that, and problem solving, I think, you know, it was mentioned before, that's a very key skill around professional resilience. Students are going to learn from their lecturers. Now, if the lecturers are then blaming the technology. Technology is bad. Technology is responsible for the failure of this lesson, etc., etc. This may not be the best way to prepare students for a world where technology is going to fail on them too. They need to learn how. So I think that there's a very interesting kind of challenge that we need to be developing the digital literacy and resilience of both staff and students at the same time, and they need to be partners in this so that actually they can empathize with each other and we talk about students being partners in learning, which again, that's quite a new
yeah, and I think even getting them to help problem solve, you know, if there's an issue, technology issue, how do we approach this and get them on board with the solution? Hey, good discussions. And is there anything anyone had, you know, really wants to ask or say at this point?
Just thank you. Because I've been having those difficulties in getting the buy-in of tutors in the use of technologies in their departments. So that was a really good discussion. Yeah, thank you.
I was just going to say, and I like Todd's point about preparation, maybe getting into the lab a bit early to just test things are going to work. I'm a Dilbert fan, and there's a Dilbert character called the Dark Angel of Product Demos, who invariably shows up when they're presenting something to customers, causes the technology to fail, and so they always anticipate him. And I'm the same. I'm thinking, oh, how is the Dark Angel going to interfere with my presentation or whatever I'm trying to do in front of a class full of students or teachers? And that kind of helps me prepare, and at least I, have a backup plan if everything doesn't quite work.
Yeah, I think that's important, because you don't want to not take those risks and push the boundaries of using technology, because that's why 99% of people default to PowerPoint, because it's safe.
I think the backup plan is a really important one, because actually it's been around for ages. People say, always have a plan B and be prepared for the worst. And teachers for however long have been doing field trips, and they've had to deal with what we talk about inclement weather. And I suppose it's interesting to look at the modern the context with lots of digital things that can go wrong, and think about it like inclement weather. What would you do if it snows? What would you do if A, B, or C happens? And we've always had to deal with those things, but we haven't decided that the countryside it's really bad learning environment, because all sorts of things can go wrong. So I think it's just changing the way we see things. And having a plan B is perhaps just one of those basic things that we should always have anyway, whether there's technology involved or not.
Yeah, good point. Hey, well, thanks everyone, and it's great to have you all contributing. And we'll have one more webinar next week. We got one last week of CMOOC, and then we'll have our second iteration in March. But before then, Todd and I will be presenting at the Escalite conference, so we'll be catching up there, Todd.
Yep, we'll do.
And we'll be sharing what we're doing there with you guys as well. So looking forward to all that. Hey, so thank you once again, and thanks once again to Liz for being our newest CMALT holder.
Yay!
So looking forward to Todd and Paul and Shingai getting there too.
Yeah, because I haven't seen the Zimbabwean victory dance.
Yeah, that's going to have to be on YouTube. Okay, thanks guys. Catch you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, bye.